if you look at charitable organizations, okay, been around for the longest time, okay, but usually it's been sort of individual organizations. So it's like orphanages that help the poor, help poor orphan children, or institutions for the mentally ill. Those are the kinds of things. And if you go back, a lot of times churches would do certain things. United Way origins kind of go back to 1887 in Denver. There was a gold rush and then a gold bust. So families came from the east to try and strike it rich, and they get to Denver, and nothing's really there. And a lot of times they brought their kids and everything with them. And so church leaders got together and said, hey, we're going to have this calamity. It's going to be winter in the mile-high city, and we need to do something. And so it's almost like a joke you hear at a golf course. There was a priest, there was a rabbi, there was a minister, a Christian laywoman, and they got together and they raised money mainly from the wealthy folks. And so instead of for one particular orphanage or one institution, they raised money for the whole community, and then they kind of helped out some of these folks. And that concept caught on, and a few other cities did this sort of united fundraising activity. In Cleveland, in about 1912 or so, 13, they put a little process around it. So they raised money in the community, and then they first had sort of budgeting and things like that needed to get done. So the organization had to submit budgets of what they were going to do with the money. So early on, they just sort of played Santa Claus. We raised the money. We're going to go ahead and just give it out to who we think makes sense. And then they started to do that. And World War I came along, and communities formed what they called war chest to raise money for the doughboys over, in rubber and other kinds of things. But there was an organized central collection infrastructure created in communities across America to support the war effort. After the war ended, this infrastructure was in place, and so these war chests that were in all these different communities flipped into community chests. So the little yellow card in the Monopoly games, that's United Way. That's United Way and it started out of that sort of centralized community collection process. It evolved, and most of the money came from the wealthy. And then as we became more industrialized and more factories, and the union movement came about, and union workers were able to take union dues out of their payroll. So the factory owners that were supporting the community chest efforts said, well, we can also ask our workers to support this campaign. They could do payroll deduction for union dues. We can do payroll deduction for this. So the names were all different kind of names around the country. It was torch drives and torch appeals and red feather campaigns and community chest, and then it evolved. A lot of them became the United Fund. And then the United Way came in the 60s. The United Fund of the greater Los Angeles area changed their name to United Way, Inc., with the little hand with this person there and the rainbow and that kind of symbol that. But the United Way system is very, and so the different organizations were encouraged from a branding standpoint, let's have one name. So these community chests and these United Funds and these different organizations all changed their name to United Way in the late 60s to early 70s. And then we negotiated, the national organization negotiated a contract with the NFL for that 1 minute spot at every NFL game. They were going to use it to sell ball caps and shirts and stuff. And they said, why don't we do this public service campaign? And it's been a great partnership, and it's helped with our brand. But it's a very decentralized system. There are over 1,300, or maybe a little less, around 1,300 separate independent United Ways in the United States. And there's also United Way or United Way type organizations across the world. I think we're in over 40 different countries: Japan and Korea and France and Canada and Uganda. It's really a global movement. So that's a little bit of the history and where, kind of where we're at now. now. So there's the United Way of Brevard, and it's just this county. And I work here. I'm the president. I work for a local board of directors. There's actually a worldwide, United Way Worldwide owns the trademark, the logo, and all that symbol, but they don't tell us what to do. They're not the boss of me, as my younger kids used to tell my older kids. But we do have to maintain certain standards to protect the brand. We all have to have audits. We have to do certain things to do that, or they can, if we don't do those things, they can take away. So that's a little bit of United Way overall, the history and how we got to here. It doesn't tell you what we're doing now, but it just gives you a little bit of insight of the structure. The national organization, we pay, this blanks out, I don't know if it's still recording, but it's fine, it's just the screen is good. So anyway, so the national organization, we pay dues, about 1% of what we raise goes there, and they do the national advertising, they do national marketing and training. They do training for us for conferencing and convention, so we have a greater sense of the movement. So it's all good. So and we think that that's a good value for our organization. So that's a little bit. And there's a United Way in the Orlando area. It's a 3-county United Way, the Heart of Florida United Way, which is Orange, Osceola, and Seminole County. United Way over in Lakeland, and Tampa, and is the 2 counties over there. So that's kind of how we're set up. Each United Way has its own local board of directors, and most United Ways have sort of similar kinds of activities. Almost everybody, they all run a community-wide campaign. Our United Way raised $7 million last year in our campaign. Orlando raised, I want to say, around $19 or $20 million in their campaign. So the core things is that they run a community-wide campaign. They use that money and they fund organizations. So there's an umbrella organization aspect. So we fund here 43 different agencies, 62 different programs at those agencies. One way, and this is kind of boring, some people don't like when I describe it like that, but you guys, are you familiar with what a mutual fund is? How a mutual fund works, right? So when you get out there and you get a job in the world, you have a retirement plan, and your company maybe matches or puts some money into a 401k, and the 401k invests in mutual funds. The mutual funds it's money that goes into this mutual fund, United Fund, if you will. And and there's investment managers that invest with different parameters, but to get a diversified portfolio and minimize risk. Instead of putting all your money into one stock, I'm just going to buy Microsoft. Well, that's probably a good idea just to buy Microsoft, but just to buy one stock, it could go up and down. But if you get into diversify, anyway, the idea of a mutual fund, this is kind of like a community mutual fund where people give payroll deduction, give money in. We have around 30,000 people in Brevard County that give money to United Way. From $1, just pulling $1 out and giving it in their paycheck, to $5 to write a check for $10 to give $3 a pay period, or $10 a pay period, to the biggest gift we got was somebody wrote a check for $50,000. Okay, and they're all totaled up. We get some corporate gifts, and we do special events, total up to about $7 million. And we also, in other United Ways, also get grants too, to distribute grants and such. So we have this collection side of United Way, and then we have this distribution side where we spend a lot of time to make sure that agencies have to submit budgets and what they've done and what they were going to do with the money, and we want to make sure that if you're giving us money, that we're investing it wisely. And so come back to that mutual fund, and a mutual fund, the money comes in, people giving out of their paycheck, and their companies maybe matching it, and that there's a group of investors that are looking at stocks, and they'll invest in technology stocks and real estate and bonds and overseas stock and manufacturing stock to get that diversified portfolio to get a good return, because in case this sector doesn't do so well, this sector does well. And they're the ones that spend the time and are really thoughtful in looking at selecting which companies they want to invest in. because you don't have time to do that. The average person isn't. So that's why people invest in mutual funds. United Way is kind of like the community mutual charitable or philanthropic mutual fund that so people invest in. So, but what we do, and I'll give you some of the materials, but we invest in agencies instead of technology stocks and retail stocks and manufacturing stocks and bonds. We invest in agencies that are helping kids, like Big Brothers Big Sisters and Boys Club and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and child care. And we invest in money to help seniors, like Meals on Wheels and Senior Congregate Dale sites and Alzheimer's Foundation. We help for folks in emergency services like Red Cross and Salvation Army and sharing centers. And we help folks with disabilities, agencies. We fund some of those programs. And so when you give, not so much to United Way, but through United Way, and so as it goes where I talked about, instead of giving just to the orphanage, you're giving through United Way to this umbrella organization, and you're part of the good works of all of those organizations that sort of provide a safety net of services. So that's sort of the core traditional United Way. You raise money in the fall, you do a community-wide campaign, you reach out to businesses. In the spring, you do a thoughtful process to distribute the money to worthwhile agencies that are having great impact that support that safety net. But then United Ways do things beyond that. They mobilize volunteers. We go through a priorities process. And we select certain specific areas that we want to try and impact and really move the dial at a community level to be a community impact organization. That's what we're trying to change our vision and mission to, community impact organization. And so, for us, it's, you can say, hey, we're going to try and tackle homelessness, or we're going to try and tackle hunger, or we're going to try and, significantly improve some of these different areas, or child abuse prevention. So for our United Way, we said we want to really impact child abuse and neglect. And to do that, we picked a couple different strategies, but we directly do a program called Healthy Families, and that's what Carmen works at. She works at our Healthy Families program, and they're going in there and teaching parenting skills, and it's a child abuse prevention direct program. We also provided increased funding to some of the other agencies that are trying to work on that. So it's kind of like you have your course work, and then you set aside, and it's like making priorities. So for all of you, you got to make your priorities. You got to work, maybe. If you got jobs, you got to go to school. You got to have some fun. You got to go to the gym. It looks like you guys go to the gym more than me. You may have a relationship. So you got to prioritize and decide what you're going to do. So you got your regular stuff, but then you say, okay, I'm going to do all this stuff. I'm going to work at a school, but I'm going to really focus on this. I'm going to choose to create more time, be more disciplined, and say, I'm going to continue to go to school. I'm going to continue to do my job, but I'm going to really start working on my fitness. And so I'm going to commit to go more to the gym, or I'm going to read up on how to diet. So that's kind of just trying to translate that. And so what we do is we're going through a process right now to select some new priorities of what we're going to do. So we've been working on hunger. We've created lots of different initiatives around hunger. We've been working a little bit on homelessness, and we learn a little bit more about that. So that is so if you look at what our United Way Brevard is today is we're like a $9 million small business. We have a sales arm that's our fundraising side that's going out and asking and coordinate campaigns at businesses. We have a marketing and communication side that's developing our videos and our brochures and our communication and media strategies. We have a finance component that processes pledge cards and pays the bills and does HR to bring in talent and do payroll and manage benefits. And then we have our community impact side that's doing the work of allocating the dollars and managing that process, but also getting involved in doing sometimes direct services. So that's a sort of the rambling broad scope of United Way from the history to kind of where we are now. We can get a lot more specific if if that works.
It's up to you guys. If you got any questions we want to do.
I promise to give shorter answers for.
I have a special interest for older adult population. I wanted to know if you guys had any specific programs designed for older adults.
Yeah, there's an organization called in this county, Aging Matters, and there's different organizations that serve that target population, and we support that organization. It's Aging Matters in Brevard, and they're the sort of semi-umbrella group for they have multiple contracts to provide services for seniors, and there are a lot of issues. There are a lot of issues for seniors, and there's different organizations and different programs to target those. So you have senior nutrition. They're poor seniors that, I mean, it's sad. There are people, there's seniors out there, done well and lived their lives and raised their kids and worked and been part of our American society, and now they're at this age that they are sometimes having to choose between food and medicine, because the cost of those kinds of things, and that's really tragic. There's also seniors that are alone. They've outlived their families, or their families are far away, and so we have a Meals on Wheels program that Aging Matters runs that program. We fund that program. Highway gives some money to that. They get money from grants and government grants for that, but sometimes the only person that the senior person talks to all day is the person that delivers that meal, Monday through, and they have, healthcare access issues. They have sometimes transportation issues to get to doctor's appointments and such, because they maybe not be able to drive any longer. So there are lots of services for folks, and there's even a greater need for that.
We're at midterm, so
yeah. Well, I get my low biorhythm, and I at 2 o'clock I was really worried about it, so I took my Red Bull. I drank my Red Bull already, so now I'm buzzing.
Got the coffee.
But yeah, there are. There are resources for that. There are programs for that. But just because they exist doesn't mean there's not a gap. It doesn't mean there's not a waiting list. It doesn't mean other people that are not served. And so there's additional resources that are out there that could be used to help out. So and there are agencies that have greater expertise in that area.
So what got you started in the field?
I went to the University of Florida, and I was a finance major, and I worked in banking, and that's what I thought I was going to do. I thought I was going to be a banker, and be a bank president or something like that, to make more money than I do now. But it's not so bad. I was just out of school, a couple of years, and they had a United Way campaign at my bank, and they had the executive director of Big Brothers Big Sisters come in and talk to us about the kids that were on the waiting list for Big Brothers. Single moms, and the kids were didn't have a dad or anything like that, and they handed out the United Way brochure that listed all, and I'll give you some materials of ours, and they showed the video and everything, and I went back to my desk and I said, okay, well, I'm out of school and I have some time, and so I called up Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and I said, yeah, I'd like to volunteer. I could go pick up a kid tonight, and we can toss the football around and chat. It doesn't work that way. You got to come in. We got to check you out. We got to do background checks. We got to train you. We got to make sure that you are. And they ask a lot of tough questions, and that you had to really think about what your motivations were, and if you were matched with a kid, because they had a lot of these kids. Anyway, I got through that, and it got matched up with a kid named Chad, and it was a terrific experience for me for volunteering. And then I worked at the bank, and they sponsored a baseball team at the Boys and Girls Club. It was just a boys club at that time. And so one of my buddies at the bank was coaching it, and I said I'll help out in coaching. So I'm volunteering at 2 different agencies. The bank has a program, and this program still exists today, called the Loaned Executive Program. We call it the Loan Leader Program here, where a company lends somebody to work on the United Way campaign for a couple of months during the fall, and it's supposed to be a win-win. That person gets a project management opportunity. There's public speaking opportunities, and so they come back refreshed, maybe some different skills, maybe a greater appreciation, greater knowledge of the community. And so we participated. I participated in that, and I loved the work, and I really enjoyed that experience. And so they had an opening at that United Way in Gainesville, and I was asked to apply for it. It's the only time that I went in and I applied, and they said, I want to hire you. We want to give you the job. Now I'd worked there for 3 months, so they knew me and everything. And I've enjoyed it. It's been 20. Yeah. It's been like 20. That was like 28 years ago.
Wow.
It's like I was 25 years old. Gotten my finance degree, and I worked in banking for a couple of years, and I did that, and I was just a kid, and I really enjoyed my career. Here with social work, there's a lot of what I call psychic rewards. Not all the time the financial dollars and cents are as much as maybe someplace else, but I know a lot of people that go to their jobs and they don't like what they do. And I got a daughter who also at the University of Florida, got a master's at the University of Florida, and she works for AT&T, and she makes $65,000 a year. She's 25 years old, and she hates her job. She hates it. But the people that work here, by and large, they like what they do. They like the work. They like making a difference and changing and saving people's lives. There's a real value to that. Liking what you do. So what else can I?
Can I know what else you do for the homeless population?
I can. I tell you, it's one of the things I feel bad about. I'm sort of where I sit is sort of a generalist. I'm out there trying to make this organization work. So the biggest part of my job, and as you get up to rise, if you become and work in an agency, the biggest part of your job is sort of administration and relationship building. Okay, so for me to be for this organization to be effective, I'm not out there usually working directly with the homeless folks. I'm out there talking to the president of the bank or the president of the hospital, the president of the big company, working with those people that are going to be the donors, working and building the strongest board possible. Because if I've got the leader of a board on leader of a company, a CEO of a company on my board, I not only have him or her, and if I get them really engaged and excited, I also have the resources from their company. I can get them involved. They can bring more volunteers, or they can write a corporate check. So that's what I have to do. But the other thing is it's good to be king. To be the boss. I can go play where I want to play a little bit, and the fun stuff and the most rewarding stuff is the kind of stuff that happens in the community impact side. The fundraisers, they got to go out and they got to do that work. And there's good aspects to that. But what Carmen does, working directly with people, is amazing. Because that's really where the lives are changed and saved. And then some of the other work we have we do taxes. We have a tax program for low incomes because people get ripped off. I can tell you about that a little bit later. Other things, but on homelessness, I decided I kind of got tricked into this. We set this as a priority, and I said I had other people kind of working on it, and it was slow. And homelessness is a very hard issue. I mean, it's a continuum. When you think about homelessness, you got to think of truly of a continuum. And you've got, one is to close the front door, to keep somebody from being homeless. If you can do some things before somebody gets to that situation. So there's stuff there on that side. Then you got just people that choose homeless by choice. Then you got people that are mental health issues. So you got what I would include substance abuse and alcoholism. And then you got the guy, the individual guy that's lost, that's sort of checked out, sleeping on the bridge, sleeping in the woods. Okay, Then you got families that have, circumstances. You got mom and 3 kids sleeping in a car. You got, and then you got people moving up that have temporarily displaced, and they need an emergency shelter. You got cold night shelter. Hey, I'm fine in the woods. It's okay. Florida, you don't have this big issue with some of the other, but it gets down to 30, upper 30s, low 40s, and if you're in the woods all night for 2 nights in a row, it could be a life and death issue. And then you got, as you move up the continuum, so you got all this kind of stuff. I would say down here, cold night shelter, emergency shelter. I need shelter for 2 or 3 nights till I can figure out where I'm going to be, so I can get to my parents or my sister or something. So that emergency shelter. And then you have the out in the woods kind of thing, and tent cities kind of concepts out there. And then you move up into getting jobs and getting services and case management. Why are they homeless? What are the underlying issues? Can you address that? And then you get up into transitional housing. So now you've got them in a shelter. They're in a homeless shelter or some sort of. Then how do you get them into a more permanent, more permanent housing? And so sometimes they're in a transitional housing where they're in a, with 3 or 4 guys in a room, but they're not in a, and then you move to their own housing and then permanent housing and all the way up to home ownership. So you can see that as a continuum. Well, there is and this is something, you talk about, stuff that you guys can do, they have a point in time count for the homeless. Federally required, you have to do it every 2 years. You have to do a shelter count every year. Everybody in your community is in a shelter count. So this January coming up, 2013, we will do a full point in time count where you go out and you take a clipboard and a note, and you got to ask tough questions. Tough questions. Are you, do you have substance abuse issues? Do you have HIV or AIDS? Can you imagine asking a homeless person? Yeah, first of all, asking if they're homeless. Hey, you look homeless. Are you homeless? So there's training and anyway. But if you're out in the woods, so anyway, so we another group had been in charge of doing the last one in 2011, the last point in time homeless count, January 27, 2011. And I've been doing this for a long time. One of the more memorable days in my career. So we got tasked to help improve the count. Our United Way's in charge of doing it this January. I said, okay, well, we're going to be in charge next year. Let me go, and I want to really participate. I don't want to just stay at the headquarters. I want to go out there and really be part of it. And so my staff person, Liz, who runs our community impact, they kind of said, let's take Rob out to the dirtiest, buggiest, snake-filled homeless camps that we know, and let him go. So they take me with one of the most experienced people that know where camps are. And so I went out walking in the woods. I get emotional, I'll tell you. I mean, I still think of these people. It's been 2 years. Sorry. Right over here, I'm telling you, half a mile from where we're sitting, 5 people in tents. There's a Burger King on US 1 right over here. Park in the Burger King walking lot. You walk 100 steps up, 5 people. Guy, retired Navy veteran, living there for 2 years in a tent. And every time it gets cold, every time you have this hideous storm, I think of that 60-year-old guy, little sticks making soup and stuff. And so, what were you doing, the homeless? I said, well, damn it. Sorry, I got myself there. So why do you do this work? But I said, I'm going to get out from my desk and I'm going to chair the Homeless Coalition. And so we're working it a lot different. And it was, I went there and it was a group of here. I think I got something right here. I'm such a softie. Maybe it's yeah, there you go. Yeah. So anyway, I get it back together again. So I get into this. I get into all right, let's see what's going on here. And so I go to the first, homeless group. It's called the Continuum of Care Coalition. I go to the first meeting, and I see, and people are saying, Rob, you don't want to do that. And these are, so these are 3rd, 4th level staff down. They got no power. Sorry, it's just the way it is. and no authority to make things happen. And they're well-intentioned, well-minded. He's not the director of the agency. He's not even usually the director of the department. And so here I am with this group. And at the first meeting, I said, "What are your priorities?" Nobody knew. So nobody knew what their main focus is. They were meeting every month, and they had certain things in a HUD grant that they had to do. So anyway, so well, that's the first thing we do. So I had to restructure the homeless coalition, to determine what the priorities were going to be for the group. Help them decide, lead the process. Well, what are you guys? You're the experts. I'm just some guy that got suckered into going to homeless camp and said I'm going to do a lot more. I'll tell you about another camp. It's not as it's just talking about the. I'll come back. That's the way I do it. But I went to this camp. Unbelievable. 2 women. One was probably, it's hard to tell. They're all younger than they look at ages yet. So, but I'm gonna guess late 40s, early 50s, and late 50s, early 60s. 2 women in a camp over here behind the Merritt Island Mall, on the water. Been there for 2 years. This was like, they had a tent. That was a bedroom, and they had a queen-size bed up on a platform. The tent was on a platform. Most of the tents are on the ground, so it's better up if you get them on a platform. So, rain and everything like that. So it's on like a pallet, like a little deck. So somebody came out there and 6 inches off the ground wood. They got a tent, and then they got a queen-size bed in the tent. Then they got another tent with like a little love seat on it, and so there's 2 tents, and there's this huge tarp covering both of the tents. So if it's raining, it's not going right on the tent, it's going on the tarp, so they've got a covered area for the old the main central pole for the tent support. They had a solar panel, a single solar panel on it, wires down to 2 marine batteries, so they had like a little electricity there. They had one of those 7-inch, like if you were driving in the car, with your parents, and you had like the DVD, players with a 7-inch screen. They had one of those that looked really, really old, and they had and it was on the water, and they had like a little 2 coolers here, and they had like and it's like this nice, great camp setup, that's you think, wow, this would be pretty cool. In the heat of the day, as awful, but they were close enough to the mall, so they'd go over there. One of them had like a little bit of a disability check, so they were getting $400 something a month. They had to get food stamps, and they'd made it work. So they go hang out in the mall at Books A Million and drink coffee. They pay, they'd go rent the DVDs, and but still, that's it shows you some of the ingenuity that's out there. And some people are homeless by choice. You've got programs for homeless folks, but they got to want to clean up. So if you can't have you can, and there are some. So anyway, so I'll come back. So I just remembered the girls. It's like wow. So so we set the priorities for the group. They set the priorities. I kind of led the process. What do you think you want to do? What are the potential priorities? We could do this. We could do this. We could do street case management, because they need stuff in there. We can improve shelters, because we have transitional housing, but sometimes people aren't ready for that. Hey, I'm just ready to get out of the woods. It's been stormy for 2 days, or it's been cold, and I'm ready to follow the rules and get cleaned up. But they're not really ready. They're just really needing a break. And so then they screen in, and they get into the housing, and then they start falling back on ways and such. So anyway, the group decided that there were 3 things that they wanted to work on. One was to try and get a tent city. It sounds awful, but it's but there's safety, security services out there. So we're trying to work on putting together a tent city for the homeless. So we have like maybe 60, 70 tents in there. You have a fence and gate around it. You'd have all kinds, you have rules. You couldn't come in there drunk. You'd have to screen in. You'd have to have a case management plan. You'd have to do all those kinds of things. And the other thing that we've done is a permanent ID project. Over in Orlando, there's a group called iDignity. And a lot of times homeless folks can't get services or get the things that they need if they don't have a permanent ID. Mm-hmm. And if you've ever lost your wallet, or if you've gone to get a driver's license renewed, oh my God, what a hassle that is. You got to bring in, your birth certificate, and you got to have, if you're married, you got to have your marriage certificate, you got to have your divorce papers, and you have to have your social security card. You can bring your mom in, tell her that it's you. It's crazy. And then if you're homeless, where do you go get your birth certificate? Where do you go to get that to go back and you guys go talk to your folks and say, hey, I need to get this stuff. So this is a group that coordinates to get homeless folks their IDs so they can sign up for benefits, services. It's tough to get a job if you don't have an ID, So that is so they set that as a priority. So we've brought in the iDignity. We've done 2 different events. We've got a group that's steadily working on that problem. So there's different points of it, and we're working on the tent city, which is great, because everybody wants a homeless tent city right near their neighborhood. I mean, it is like a landfill. Yeah. Let's bring that landfill right next to nobody wants it. So you have the NIMBY. You know what NIMBY is, right? You've heard the term NIMBY?
No.
The term NIMBY means not in my backyard. I'm all for it, just as long as it's nowhere near where I live. And so that's something that when you're looking to do something for a disadvantaged population like homeless, then you have to find the right location, because then people will say, hey, it's going to decrease my property values, or there's safety concerns for my kids. So you have to find an area that nobody wants to live at. So anyway, I'm not doing good on the short answers, but you got the whole deal on that one, Linda. So what else can I help you out with? But again, it's a lot of it is coordinating with lots of groups. I mean, you go to some agencies, their mission is very focused and narrow, and they're really helping a targeted population. It's a daycare center, it's an Alzheimer's group, and they're doing respite care and elder care for groups. And we have agencies like that, they're very focused, and they're looking at this specific population, and they've built programs and strategies around services to that population. For United Way, we're that umbrella group, and we're involved in lots of different things, which makes it fun.
Rob, we had to present this to, I would say about 50, 60 of our classmates and stuff. What is the most important thing that you want the class to know about United Way, our United Way? Mm-hmm. What would you say, what would you like us to teach them, to convey to them?
Again, as you've just heard me say, that it's we're all over the place. We're fundraising. We're out doing direct services. Not a lot of United Ways do direct services, but we do some of that. We do tax return. So I guess the main issue, the main issue is that, and I don't want to reduce it to a marketing campaign, but there's a marketing campaign that we've talked that talks about living united. Live united, and that means that we are all connected. And there's, I don't think there's a better place to start out than with your local United Way, and you can live united in lots of different ways, whether it's helping an outreach at your church, or helping an outreach with your school, but the thing is to get involved. And by living united, there's 3 things that you can do. You can give, you can advocate, and you can volunteer. And you can do all of those. And so you can make a donation to United Way, through United Way's agencies, or to a specific charity. You can advocate. That means public policy, or supporting, or just saying, hey, we need going to the county commission or city commission, or writing a letter to your congressman about a key issue for those folks. And then you can volunteer, and you can let your heart say, if you want to volunteer to help seniors, there's lots of avenues. If you want to help Glenda to volunteer to help for homelessness, there's lots of different avenues. But that would be the message: live united, give, advocate, or volunteer. All right. Well, let me get you some of the other material, so that if you have a written report. Do you have some more Danielle? Sure.
In your experience, have you been in a situation that you've really had to take your own ethics and morals away to help a person even though you didn't agree with what they were about or who they were, what was going on with them? And if
I
so,
don't
how
know
do you handle
for me
that?
personally, but we do have issues like that. Yeah, that I'm trying to. You made it to me, but I know I have. There's some issues in our society that are very contentious. When you talk about abortion, a very sensitive issue for some. And so at the United Way, when I first started in Gainesville, they funded Planned Parenthood. Now, Planned Parenthood in Gainesville doesn't do abortions, but they were supportive of abortion rights, and they did counseling. And so if you were a young girl or young woman that came in and you were pregnant and to Planned Parenthood, and they would sit down and they would give you all the legal options that you would have, and all the steps and all the directions. They say, okay, well, if you need health services, prenatal care, here's where you can go to get prenatal care. If you'd like to talk about adoption, here's some options for adoption. And if you want to terminate the pregnancy, here's some options for that. Well, there's some people that feel very strongly about very pro-life position, and they would not want a single nickel of their money to go to an organization that would even give the phone number up of an abortion clinic. And so you have that, and you have the same thing from based on say homosexuality. We're working on some technical issues here.
Technical difficulties.
So like the Boy Scouts, everybody likes the Boy Scouts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Boy Scouts' position is that you must obey the Scout law, clean, thrifty, help little ladies across the streets, and it is if you are a Scout, if you're a 16, 17-year-old Scout, and they have sort of the don't ask, don't tell kind of policy. And if you come out and say that you're homosexual, you can no longer be a Scout. And if you're a Scout leader and you're homosexual, you cannot be a Scout leader. Now, again, it's don't ask, don't tell if you choose to continue to want to be involved in Scouting and such. And so there are some United Way in Orlando took on that issue and said, we don't want to discriminate on any issues. And so if you're discriminating, and the Scout says, well, we have our values, and this is our values, and so that you can't have conflicts like that around emotionally charged issues like homosexuality, like abortion. There are folks that wonder about if you keep it's sort of the giving out handouts or teaching people to fish, and there are folks that feel like people should be doing more to help themselves and such. So I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Absolutely.
So okay,
Definitely.
but yeah, there's sometimes you get moral dilemmas on that. Like when we're talking about Glenda's asking about homeless. You have 10 cities around. There's not a lot of because it's hard to sustain these groups, but you have some that say, you're only going to help folks. The one that we're looking at is for people that are looking to change their condition. So they have to screen in, they have to sign that they're not going to abuse substances and just trying to get cleaned up and get into society. So basically, if somebody says, no, I'm not going to, I really want to do better, but I'm not giving up my beer. I'm not giving that up. And we say we don't serve them. And there are people who say, hey, we should have and there are what they call wet camps that you can come in. And as long as you're not, causing problems and stuff, you're not bothering anybody else, you can do your own thing. But some people might not want to support that. So anyway, and I'm sure, there's dilemmas that Carmen has to deal with too. Healthy Families is a mandatory reporting agency, and she, her peers, you don't go into homes as much, but
I do, and
You
I've
do.
made calls.
Yeah.
When the first visit and stuff, if I've seen any bruises, I saw one girl with her hair like pulled out of her head. I went in right away and
you
reported
got
it.
to call.
So we are mandated reporters, and it's hard because
You don't have a good relationship with that person after you've reported it at DCF for child abuse. They're like, hey, come back. What else are you going to do for me? But
it's our duty,
but it's your duty to do that. And sometimes it's clear cut. Other times it's
sometimes
suspect
too with
and
the
gray
family
area.
support workers, they go out after me. There's domestic violence in the homes, and they got to make a call. And these are people that they see weekly. So that whole relationship is kind of broken there. We got to try to still make the call, do what we have to do, but keep the family engaged too. So it's really, really hard.
Not all the kind of stuff you see in a book or something, but
Yeah.
there are some
Mhm.
judgment calls, and we're and there are people that are not nice. You're trying to help them out, and they're not nice. So, anyway, anything else?
You guys have anything? I want to thank you for this time. Thank you for
Yes,
seeing my
absolutely.
classmates.
Thank you.
I mean,
Yeah.
this was really, we thought of an organization. I said, who better than United Way, I
And she
emailed you
immediately
right
was
away.
like, "Hey guys, I got it."
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, let me you guys chat and talk amongst yourselves, and I'm going to get you the brochure and get you some of the other information about United Way, the material stuff. But I just want to, and that might help